Okay, good evening, everybody. It is 5:31 in India, and I believe it is about 2:01 in Stockholm and Milan. We are scheduled to start, and so we will begin the meeting, and I will keep admitting people as they join the meeting, and I hope that doesn't disturb anybody. Well, thank you all for joining, and welcome to this discussion on how assessments can be the game changer. I thought before I introduce the panel, I'd share a small story of how assessments have actually been a game changer in many instances, but one particularly strong one that comes to my mind is when I was doing a certification program in Calcutta, and on the first evening, there was this young girl who came to me and said, "I will be late tomorrow morning." And those of you who are not participating, may I request you to mute your mics because I can hear some tea being made in the background. And while that is fine, I have no problems. I have mine already ready. So yes, and this young mother came to me and said that I will be late tomorrow morning. And I asked her, I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Not really." So I said, "Well, if you're late by about half an hour, you won't miss much because we'll be doing a recap. But if you're late beyond that, then you will miss a lot more because we'll start the second day's program." And she said, "I might be late." I said, "Is everything okay?" Just out of concern. And she said, "No, my baby is not well." So I said, "Really? Is everything okay?" She said, "Not really." I said, "How old is your baby?" And she said, "My baby is about 9 months old." And I said, "9 months old and she's not well? And I mean, what are you doing about it?" She said, "My child has not been well since the time he's been born. And we've not been able to figure out." I said, "Come on, modern medicine has surely progressed so much that in 9 months you can figure out." She said, "No, we've done blood tests, we've done x-rays, we've done scans." I said, "Not to a 9-month baby, please, please, no." I said, "Bring me your profile." I don't know why I said it. I said, "Bring me your profile." And she brought me her profile and I looked at it and I said, "I'm going to ask you to do something when you go home today. Are you going to do it?" And she said, "Yes." I said, when you go home, I want you to do these things." And she said, "Why are you saying it?" I said, "Just do it." And she did it. I believe so. Next morning, she was on time. In fact, she was early. She brought some sweets. She had tears in her eyes. And she was saying, "I don't know why you said what you said. I don't know what you saw in my profile. But yesterday was the best evening my child and me have spent since the day he was born. He's eaten. He's slept peacefully. He's comfortable. I'm at peace. We've had one of the best evenings as a family." And when I wrote this, and she sent me a beautiful email, and I just forwarded it to our global CEO, Yuka. And he wrote back saying that I never, ever imagined and dreamt of in my life that when I started this business in Finland someday, in India, in Calcutta, a small child's life would be changed and blessed forever. He said, "This is one of the most gratifying incomes I have received in so many years of building this business." So assessments can be a game changer. I'm happy to welcome our panel. We have Eva from Sweden. She's the head of the Extended Disc franchise and Things business in Sweden. We have Nina, who is the customer relationship manager. And I say this often, I think it's a highly underrated title, Nina. I think you should redesignate yourself as something else because she actually holds the Italian franchise together in terms of relationships, business building, business development, and so on and so forth. We have Anurag Rai from India. He's a leadership coach, works extensively with senior management, and uh, very, very impressively talks about ROI in effectiveness of leadership coaching. We have Heather Gupta. She's the HR director of Mullen-Law Lintas. She's also a certified coach. Again, a very strong user and a fan of extended disc assessments. And we have Ishita Mandal. Ishita Mandal is a clinical psychologist. She's a visiting faculty to the Department of Psychology, Mumbai University. She's also certified on extended disc. And she's going to bring perspective from a clinical perspective of what is happening in the current scenario and how assessments can contribute to being a game changer. I'd like to begin with Eva. Eva, good evening,
Thank
good
you.
afternoon, Eva.
Good afternoon.
we're going to talk today about how assessments can be a game changer. And I've seen that you have put together something really interesting for us in terms of not only one, but two assessments.
Yes.
All right. Could you share with us how you're using these assessments and how your consultants are using these assessments to be a game changer, not only in these times, but in general, because some of these assessments go beyond a time frame of, let's say, 3 to 6 months, right?
Yes.
So could you please tell us what you're going
Yes.
to share with us, and share your screen also, Eva?
Yeah, I will start to share with my screen. I hope everybody sees.
Yes.
So let's see here. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to talk about, now it goes very fast, everything here. Talk about how we use extended disk, because one of the very latest trends in coaching is to, everything is going very fast, is to be able to show concrete results of the coaching programs. And we have to always remember that our clients, they pay for the result, not for the coaching process. And one very powerful way of using it is to use assessment tools, extended disk and things assessment tools. Can you see it like this? There was something wrong with the pictures. Can everybody see?
Yes.
If I don't have it in, yeah. Great. One of the great tools for this purpose is Things 360 feedback. It's used to measure skills, competencies and behaviors of the leaders against the leadership principles. It usually combines the self-assessment with the feedback from the customers, sometimes from colleagues, managers, and also direct reporters. And it shows in a very easy way the strengths and the development areas of the leader. As you can see, here is the one way to show the results. It's using the traffic lights, so it's easily to see the red one, the alert ones, the yellow ones maybe on their way to the wrong direction, and the green ones where I'm doing fine. To make the process more powerful, we usually combine the 360 feedback with the extended disk personal analysis. Extended disk personal analysis, it helps the leader to understand their natural way of communication and behavior, and also how it affects others. And our experience is that it's usually easier for the manager or the leader to take in the feedback from the 360 when they have first started to reflect over their own behavior, their natural behavior and communication skills. And the process is very clear and easy that we use. We start with the Things Open 360 feedback. We evaluate the current situation. How is the leadership doing in this company right now? And then use the extended disk personal analysis to start to understand my natural behavior as a leader and how it affects others. And then together with the customer, with the client, you can identify the development areas and also make a coaching program that targets these development areas. And then after the program is done, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, you make the same feedback evaluation again. And then you can easily see what have these activities that we have done with the leader, the coaching program, what results did we get? So hopefully the red areas, yellow areas are green now, and especially those that we targeted this development program on. So that's mainly the way and the process that we use these two. And the very good thing that we have heard from our customers is that you can combine the 360 and personal analysis in the same report. So the leader gets everything in the same.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Is there any particular case that stands out that where you feel, you can recall from the top immediately, where this has been extremely effective and the leader has come back or the company has come back and said that, wow, this was an amazing. I'm sure there must have been many, but is there something recent that stands out, Eva? Or could we leave that with you and come back a little later?
Yeah.
Up to you.
We had a consultant who was working with, I think it was about 20 leaders at the same time, and she used this progress. And she said that the customer thought it was there was not the same fear for making 360 feedback, because sometimes customers feel like, okay, what is it going to show? Is this going to affect my role in this company? Maybe I get bad results. By using the Extended X360 together and showing this process to all the leaders at the same time, this is how we're going to work. You all are going to have some development areas. You're all going to have some strengths. She said that the process was much easier, and the customer was very happy with the results, because they'd made the same 360 evaluation and then compared the results, and they could see a very positive development after the program.
Thank you, Eva. I'm going to come back a little later and ask you a question that is on my mind. So I'll ask Anurag now, because he also works a lot with leadership in leadership coaching. So Anurag, you've used extended risk assessments a lot over the years, and I know you've done some very interesting work with senior leadership in coaching and development. Can you tell us how you feel the extended risk assessments have been a game changer as far as the leaders are concerned, as far as their receptiveness to listening is concerned? What has been your experience, Anurag?
So thank you, Manvir, for having me. My experience has been extremely fulfilling and rewarding in many ways. I use leadership assessments for selection of leaders, because that helps me to get some insight about the individuals. And my process is that I don't take assessment on the face value. I also engage with them to verify and validate what I see, so that one is very sure where one stands. I also use extensively the team profile of extended DISC, because for last 2 to 3 years, the shift has been mostly on the team. And team performance has become super critical these days, particularly the teams who are responsible on the P&L front. And once you know the team construct along with the individual construct, I think it's a very comprehensive look for a CEO and the team members to see that in the given scene, if they are looking for incremental change in their strategies or multiple level of change, whether this team construct is going to be helpful or is going to be seen that what more would be required to ensure that the team performance is certain and it's predictable. I think today in the business world, I think there are cases where assessments brings insights. That's my basic belief, and insights are so powerful for the individual that they can make difference to their life. So whether it is pro bono or professional, I've been using almost for 9 years, and I use it in different form and shape, ranging from selection, from development, from coaching, from team. And my client has been extremely delighted when they get to know themselves. To respond.
Yes, Anurag.
So my take is that for me, it is a commercial value proposition to my client, because they get a very higher level of certainty from the outcome. Individuals are very happy because they get a very unique insights about themselves. And in coaching, this is a good conversation beginner with them, because once they start discovering the new facets of their personality and how they operate in a pressure situations, what actually motivates them and demotivates them, it gives a very, very comprehensive view, which is very enabling and empowering. And I believe this tool has actually empowered me to assist the corporate leaders in multiple ways. including achieving the higher performance, including achieving their ambitions, including their relationship management, including relationship with self has also gone up multiple levels, Manvi. So it is a blessing for me to have tools like extended disk with me, which is cost effective, which is also useful to client, and I enjoy playing with it, Manvi.
I'm glad you say cost effective, Anurag, because a lot of people still tell us that we are slightly on the higher side. But thank you for saying cost effective. I've got a question for you, Anurag, which I'm going to leave you with the question. I'm going to come back a little later and request you to address the question. I'm sure people feel the wow afterwards when they see the results and see the kind of debrief and your intervention, how you handle the report and the results from the report. But initially, there must be sometimes you must have faced some kind of resistance. Oh, why do we need this? You can just do the coaching straight one-on-one. I know you, you know me. We can engage and talk. Why do we need an assessment? Maybe you have faced that kind of initial resistance, and then afterwards it has led to a very wow. So I'm going to leave you with that question, Anurag. I'm going to come back to you and ask you this question a little later. Not because I know you don't want to answer it or you can't answer it now, but because I just want to ask somebody else. I want to ask Ishita something, and we'll come back to you for this one, Anurag. So thank you so much for that perspective. Ishita, good evening, Ishita. Ishita, as I was telling everybody who joined us early, is a clinical psychologist. She's she's a psychotherapist. She's a TEDx speaker. She's visiting faculty to the Department of Psychology at Mumbai University. Certified also in Extended Disk, and has been following Extended Disk and me around social media and everything for quite a bit. And Ishita, I want to ask you, in this current scenario, you're seeing that the dynamics of the workplace has changed completely. Whether we like it or we don't like it, whether we agree or we don't agree, it has changed. Right? Things have changed. As a consulting practitioner, as a person who has a private practice, are you seeing any change in the kind of cases that you're handling from professionals who used to come to you for something earlier, and do you feel that there is something which has shifted now in this current work from home, remote working kind of scenario?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and this is a situation which all of us are going through. We have shifted to a home office from the traditional office that we all have been used to working. And for professional, it is a big change, though they do not have to travel much. But however, for them is the home space becomes their workspace, and converting the home space to workspace has led to a lot of restrictions also for them, because they have to find ways where they can find a harmony between work from home and work at home.
Nice.
And it is more of a challenge for those who are both husband and wife, they are working from home and they have kids, so their challenges are different. Those single, again, I have seen their challenges have been very different. During this process, what I found is a lot of them did find some time to introspect into the way they are, the type of person they are. Some of them felt that maybe they could let go a lot of things which they were holding on to. Some of them did try, through a few counseling sessions, they were able to rewire their thinking process, because that was a need of the hour at this time, to look into themselves, realize their obstacles, realize their limitations. Though we all talk of SWAG, people all know it in the book, but I really doubt how much people really apply it on themselves to figure out where they need to bring about the change in themselves, and also recognize, understand their basic nature, the person they are, and how they have been behaving at the work front and behaving at home. And this is where the relationship now has gone a little different. Connecting with people on virtual platform, a lot of IT people are used to, but not everyone. Again, connecting with family members, everybody felt initially it is a wow moment, but then they realize they are 24/7 with those people. So the relationship, again, the dynamics of the relationship again changes. They can try and think that maybe have they changed, their personality has changed, or the nature of the other person has changed. So there has been a lot of cognitive changes that people have gone through during this period.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember one of my earlier mentors telling me, you know, that marriage is like a 3D, you know, affair. You have first the dating, then you have the discovery, and then you have the discomfort. So the 3Ds are there in the, it's totally three-dimensional. But thank you for adding that perspective, Ishita. I've got something else I have on my mind that I want to talk to you about. And that concerns, how do you think people would be able to adjust and cope with it once these restrictions are lifted and they have to go back? Do you feel that there would be another set of adjustments that would be needed, or you think that transition would be smooth and effective? But I'm going to leave you with that question. All right, you can go ahead and answer it. This is perfectly all right.
Yeah. It is, see, when the whole lockdown started, people had a lot of anxiety about the situation which they do not know, which is pretty much ambiguous to them, which is an external foe for which they do not have much control. So by now they have got so used to it, used to the restriction being there. Now the whole concern is what happens if gets lifted. Earlier it was too much restriction, when it will get lifted. Now by June 3rd, I find by end of May and beginning of June, I started hearing people saying that, you know, how do we get back to once the restrictions are lifted? Earlier people had this, like, it's so comfortable to work from home. You know, the traveling is not there. In Mumbai, basically the commuting hazards and all. Now I find people are saying, oh, I have to get back to work again, I have to travel. So that is another aspect of it that they feel, again, as I said, the mental wiring, the thought process, again, go through a lot of changes of adjusting to it. So basic human behavior, for any situation they are in, they'll always find some hassle in something or the other.
True, true. Fortunately for us, we've got some excellent tools. We've got that My Self-Study Workbook, which talks about the stresses of a person also. And we recently launched the Remote Worker Self-Study Book that will be launched soon in India. So you have to check with your different franchises where you are, how that can be made available to you. Having said that, and I know that Nina has got a very, very interesting case that she wants to share with us, a real nice model about how somebody known to her has adapted so beautifully in this situation. Nina, would you like to share your case study and how assessments have been a game changer to this person?
You know all that Italy is one of the leading countries when it comes to top and luxury fashion. And well, we have some clients from that sector, but of course from many other sectors as well. And in general, I mean, our clients, they use the behavioral assessments traditionally for recruiting, development of people, and so on. Many of our clients also use the reasoning analysis combined or separately from the behavioral assessment, and then also the new tool sales assessment is coming quite in now to the Italian market in order to increase the sales and so on. But apart from the traditional ways, you know, Italians are very sourceful and creative people in general, and so I wanted just to tell you about this new client of ours. Last time I mentioned the welfare coaching, couples coaching, which refers also to what you just talked before with Ishita and so on, which are sort of new things coming up now during this strange period. And this our client, so she is a lady who has been working for about 15 years in the top fashion luxury segment, and she has really extensive experience in the retail, in the development of people, and she has held really high positions like HR and organization director. And now she then decided to start up her own business. And she's basically, what she's doing, she's addressing professionals with with different roles in different levels of experience in the commercial area, in the retail, in the wholesale, both senior and junior positions. And what does she do with them? She does more individual consultancy. So what is that actually, or what is it not? So it's not the traditional way of coaching. It's not the psychological approach, but it's rather quite a pragmatic and scientific approach. It's done in a quite short way of time, so it doesn't last so long, but it's very efficient. And it's like it's not the same path for everybody, but it's personalized according to your role and what your goals are and where you want to develop yourself. So it's all done completely in remote, which is easy in that way that you can schedule it for whatever time. It doesn't have to be during the office times and so on. And it consists basically, she does a video assessment first with the person to understand the background, and then the extended DISC behavioral analysis is done. And then there is a session after that where you go through the results of the analysis, and then create and develop the plan for developing this person. So it's basically a path to develop yourself, to go into the right direction, to learn how to really use your strengths and to work on those pitfalls that we all have. So that is a bit her idea. I mean, to work with people from different levels, making this personalized path for everybody, and to make a plan for the continuous improvement, and that is her strategy right now. Then she's also working in the, let's say, the more traditional ways, directly with companies, doing recruiting, doing team assessments and so on. But she's putting a lot of effort right now on this individual consultancy. So
fantastic. Fantastic. You know, Nina, it's a little bit of a serendipity, but when Finks was launched, the first report that I made was a fashion designer's report.
Ah, okay.
Yes, absolutely. Sarabjit has asked a question. We will ask that question to you a little later. The question is, or I'll leave the question with you and we'll come back and you can answer it. The question is, could you please elaborate a little more on the pragmatic and scientific approach? So when you say what is pragmatic and scientific approach, could you please elaborate that? I think I know the answer, but I will leave you to answer that question. All right, when we come back to you on the second round.
Yes.
We have with us Heather Gupta. Heather is the HR director of an organization called Mullen-Law Lintas. She's also a certified coach, and she has been extensively using extended DISC assessments, both in her coaching and in her with her organization in the HR as the head of HR. And I know Heather is doing a lot of work with the assessments, because every 2 or 3 days we have a discussion on something or the other. What do you think about this? Is this like this? Is it like that? And that's good, because that tells me that the person is very involved and very appreciative of exactly what is going on, and still, despite her level of information, still wants to discuss certain things. So Heather, good evening, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Could you tell us exactly how you're using assessments in this situation, or how you have used it as a game changer in your organization? Would you like to share something with us, Heather?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been using DISC in some form for the last, I think, 12 years or so, and extended DISC probably for about 5 years. When I joined this particular organization, this was in October of 2018, we have about 600 employees. And there had been very little coaching or training done in recent years for this organization. So, I mean, the very first thing I did when I walked in the door, pretty much, was I took my HR team through extended DISC. Because I actually rejoined this organization after 12 years. I had a HR team of 12 people, and there's no way that I could have imagined moving quickly into action with them without extended DISC. And it's become such a part of my life now that it's my default for kind of all the work I do. So I took them through it, and I quickly identified that I had a bunch of high C's and S's, and I'm very high DI. So that was a huge insight in itself. So that's kind of informed all the work we've done as a team. We've gone deeper and deeper into DISC. We did a reports again after a year, and we saw how the adapted styles had really changed, which was very, very interesting. So I started with them. I then used extended DISC for, I think I've covered about 400 of my employees. So using extended DISC in teams, so I run kind of a 2-hour module with teams and bring them all together. What I found was it's given us a common language across the organization. So, you know, and of course there are people who sort of are a bit cynical and kind of aren't sure, but when they see the simplicity of the tool and they see how accurate the reports are, and they see their team conflict minimizing and people just getting on better, it's given us this currency right across the organization, which I think has been really, really powerful. So that's also happened. And I've also used it extensively for training sessions and workshops, which I run. I have a program called Like a Boss, which is a leadership program for emerging leaders. So right now I'm taking 40 of my emerging leaders through this. And what I found is, because now, of course, the training has moved online completely, what I found is that extended DISC is really gluing that training together. Because when you're trying to keep the attention of 40 people in their houses with their whatever distractions they're happening, every single session, it's a 10-module program which goes in different directions and weaves in different themes, but every single program we come back to extended DISC as our starting point. A is a refresher, and B to kind of keep orienting people back, because this is essentially behavioral development for leaders, right? So it starts with DISC. And on top of that awareness, I've added on modules around conflict and around feedback and around dealing with difficult people and around, I mean, everything. So we keep coming back to that, and I found it really, really effective in providing that glue and that adhesion to kind of keep people together. I'm also coaching these people individually. When I say coaching, it's a mix of coaching and mentoring, because of course it's very hard to be a coach if you're also the HR head. So it's coaching in the loose sense of the word, but whenever I ask people, so what, you know, how would you like to use this session? They pretty much always say, can we talk about my DISC report? I'm really, really keen to know X. So again, it brings them back, and they're able to tie all of their learnings back to their reports and the reports of others. So, I mean, it's an absolutely fantastic tool for me. And that's how I've used it in my organization, obviously a lot in other organizations as well. But yeah, that's how it's been for me here.
Sure. Anurag wants to ask a question. Anurag, please.
Yeah, Heather, you said very rightly that by applying one kind of a framework, you get a language to talk about in the whole environment. Have you ever experienced that once you start using a language, say around the extended DISC, people also start labeling people because it's also a reality which we have seen that we all change with the time. And if we label it people in certain way, then I think the individual has always a challenge that even if the needle is shifting towards the positive side, the environment still perceives and views that person in the older way than in the new way. What's your take on this?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And that's why I always insist on only allowing people to complete the assessments if they've been through the training. So that 2-hour module, I spend a lot of time talking about the fact that there are no right and wrong styles, that we shouldn't put people into boxes, and that we shouldn't pigeonhole people, because that I had noticed actually at one point there was a little bit of a whispering around, this feels a little bit like you're stereotyping us. It was a little bit of kind of intelligence that I picked up. So I then worked extra hard to make sure that people understand this is a tool. And even if you think it's wrong, you're free to also think that. You've answered the assessment. If you don't feel it's accurate, then that's perfectly okay, although people always do, frankly. So you're right, but I've had to work quite hard to make sure that we are talking in kind of correct language and that we're not stereotyping people. And I talk a lot about adapting and how people can sort of, you know, move into different spaces and all of this stuff. So yeah, it requires a lot of work on the part of the trainer to make sure that people are very sensitized to this.
Thank you.
All right. I also like to add something over here, Anurag. While we know that people can learn new behaviors and they can learn new skills, we also know that the person's profile too, which is the natural behavioral style, does not significantly change over the period of his life. Jung has said this beautifully. He says that your behavior is a gift, your personality is what you develop. We can almost make out from within a few weeks of a child being born, the way he interacts with his environment, what his behavioral style level 1 in terms of DI or C would be by the time they grow up. We know that. But this is not us telling the person who he is. This is the person telling us who he is. All right. So it's a self-assessment. So while the profile 1 may change in terms of learning new skills and learning new behaviors, and that is an ongoing process, we know that profile 2 does not undergo major changes unless there are a couple of other situations like life-threatening events or trauma, which is really not the scope of this discussion, but that profile 2 would remain. So that's a very good initiative that Heather is taking in terms of briefing people that no stereotyping, but also establishing a common language becomes very important, because then people appreciate that I must respect that he's an S, so I must try not to rush him into doing certain things. I must allow him the space and the time, at the same time give him the support of benchmarks and timelines and tell him that needs to be done. So that's a very interesting question, Anurag. Thanks for asking it. And that's Heather, I think you're doing a very good, I was not aware of this initiative that you do, that you you help people to understand that it's only a tool and they shouldn't stereotype and label each other. So you can't be walking around saying, haha, here walks the D, haha, here walks the I, haha, here walks the S. We can't really do that in that sense. Is your question answered, Anurag?
Yeah, I think quite comprehensively, Manvi.
All right, thank you so much. I wanted to come back to Eva and ask her a question. Eva, you mentioned that you're using both the tools, the Open 360 and you like to recommend the use of both the tools, the Open 360 and the behavioral analysis. Which one do you do first, or it doesn't matter?
You do them at the same time, actually, because you do first the current evaluation of the leadership, but we usually go first through the personal analysis with the person before we go to the feedback.
Okay.
Because then we have started the reflection. They usually start to talk about, okay, now I understand why my communication with that person always has some problems, and they start to understand that the 360 will show some things that they have already started to reflect over. So the feedback is not so big surprise for them usually.
Okay. So they're done more or less simultaneously, the behavior analysis and the Open 360, and then you use the results from both to give people feedback or debrief or whatever you need to do. Am I correct?
But we start the debriefing with the personal analysis and then go to the 360. Yes.
And at what frequency are you? At what frequency do you repeat the 360? Do you repeat it if necessary after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? What?
It depends on the coaching program, because our consultants, they have very different coaching programs. Some have it for a year and some have it for half a year. So it depends. But the most important thing is that we have been targeting these different development areas, working in the coaching programs with them. And then after, when the process is over, then you make a new. It's a little bit different. It depends how they work.
And I'm sure there would be a very good amount of referrals that come because of the happy clients that you have. And that also helps to keep the consultants going, right? And that's a very good part of the business. Good. Thank you so much, Eva. I'm going to flip back to Anurag. I had left you with a question, Anurag, on the resistance.
Yeah, Manvi, good that you asked and also gave me this time to reflect on my past experience.
Okay.
What I realized and what I now I'm fully convinced is that as a practitioner, it is super critical for us to know ourselves very well, because we are going to encounter very interesting situation when we are in helping, enabling, facilitating, coaching, mentoring scenario. And therefore, if we know ourselves very well, I think we can empathize with the individual and pace with the situation and time very, very well.
Right.
Very unique way to think is that working professionals and CXOs believe that though science is advancing, not many are aware that the personality science has actually evolved so much that it has a capacity to create a report which is like CT and MRI kind, if I put it in a medical context.
Okay, okay.
And it gives them a sense, but I think their lack of awareness and lack of understanding on such subject actually, sorry, actually sometimes comes in their way. So you will have to pace it well, and I think some of them are also a little bit, I'll say, arrogant and stubborn to say, I know myself better than what you are going to tell me. And as you said very rightly, it is you are telling me who you are rather than I am or the tool telling me kind. So I think you have to be patient, be positive to, help an individual to believe that we have a unique executive health checkup report, which is going to bring some interesting insights in front of you. Right. And yes, post that there is some denial, some excuses, all those things will come. But I have a luxury, when I'm assisting individuals, I'm with them for 8 months to 12 months, and I give enough time to them to soak in and allow them to sink in with what is looking like the report looks like. And eventually you see gradually and slowly the reality sets in. But if it is one odd session, then probably you'll have to leave it at that level, because I don't do that work. But eventually, I have not come across any leader in the corporate world who doesn't want to be successful and happy. True. So internal ecosystems does challenge them that this is not me, but I think you have to be patient and you have to give them that power to know themselves. And eventually they succeed.
True, true. I'm glad you said that about denial, because I remember doing a project with a very, very senior leadership team, and there was the managing director was 100% D, all right, and he had the board of directors with him over there. And as we started discussing the profiles and discussing the styles, he sends a note with the head of HR. Ask him not to take my name over here. So I said, okay, I won't take his name. I'll take all the other 12 directors' names. So it will, yeah, there is sometimes a little bit of a denial that these people sometimes does come in. I understand and appreciate that. Nina, there was a question which had been asked from Sarabjit, that can you explain pragmatic and pragmatic
and scientific approach?
Scientific, yes.
Exactly. I think it's really what extended disc behavioral analysis is about. Yes. Because it is a scientifically validated tool.
Correct.
And it gives really pragmatic, really concrete answers. So I think it's a combination of these two. You can really see how you are now. You can understand what are your motivators, what are your demotivators, what are your strengths, which areas for your role you might need to develop, in which areas you are natural talent, because it's a natural behavior of you. So it really gives you pragmatic, concrete results, and all is tested through a validated test. So,
yeah. Sarabjit, is your question answered, or because I think, okay, he said, thank you. There's a question from Praveen. I'm going to ask, I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to, anybody else who has a question, they can ask it through chat, or you can unmute yourself or raise your hand, whatever, or you can put it up. There is a question from Praveen which says that there is a mechanism in the system that identifies if someone is trying to game the system, mainly if someone is trying to extract a favorable report, since many SSEs are quite intelligent nowadays. I can assure you, Praveen, that even after 10 years of being with Extended Disc and about 15 odd years of having worked around DISC, If I try to game the system today, I would not be able to extract a favorable report. There are a lot of online free disk tools that you can. The basic philosophy being this, that there are two schools of thought in the construct of a questionnaire as far as any forced choice questionnaire is concerned. One school of thought which says that the outcome must be obvious. The second school of thought is that the outcome must not be obvious. So in the school of thought which says that the outcome must be obvious, if you select something, you know what it will affect, whether it will affect D, whether it will affect I, whether it will affect S, or whether it will affect C. In the other school of thought, where there is a belief that you don't know what you're selecting, what trait it is affecting, D, I, S, or C, you cannot game the system. You cannot choose, you cannot say that if I select this thing here, am I going to affect a D or an I or an S or a C? Because not only do you have to say that you are most something, you have to choose the exact opposite of that as a least. And you have to do that consistently over 24 instances. It is very, very difficult, extremely difficult. If anybody tries to game the system in the extended disk model, I would love to leave that as a challenge. Quite openly, I can assure you that at best you will get an invalid result, and if there is some kind of a disturbance, you will get something called a mirror profile, but there is nothing beyond that. I can assure you that somebody can game the system. I have had an opportunity, I have had an experience where a consultant has called me frantically and said, the managing director is asking me to stop the training program. And I've asked her to find out why, and he said, I was so stupid. I did not know how interesting this was. I did not know how accurate this was. When you sent me the link, I asked my secretary to take the assessment. So now the secretary has taken the assessment because she's been working with him for 27 years. She knows him very well as a person, and she knows him, how he's at work. So she's taken the assessment. A report has come. I have told the consultant, not, you will stop the program, give him a fresh link, let him take the assessment on his own, but not to discard that secretary's report, because that can be used as a behavioral 360. If the managing director wants to know what his secretary thinks of him, then he's got a behavioral insight into that part of it. So we can use it that way. Yes, Anurag, you can add.
Yeah, it's interesting question with Praveen has asked, and I think in at least in the selection space, or if you are doing assessment centers or development centers, which is for the purpose, people do try to tinker with their responses. But the beauty in DISC, as Manveer mentioned, is that his report will not be generated, which only be known to the administrator. And I remember, in a couple of cases, I had to attempt for 4 or 5 times to give him the link. And eventually I had to have a very open conversation with him that is there something okay, not okay, is there something internally going around and whatnot. But then finally we could create the report. But I think I agree, Praveen, that there are enough people who operate with the mind of, perception impression management perspective, and they believe that they can play with it, but not with this tool. In other tools, you can, and eventually the practitioners are able to get into it. The interesting incident which I remember is I was debriefing the DISC report to an MD of a company, and he kept challenging every line of whatever was there in the report. But at the end, he made a very interesting comment, which I think would be worthwhile for many of you. He said, Anurag, I don't agree with this report at all. But let me tell you, my marriage is 23 years old. And for last 22 years, my spouse has been telling that I'm like that. So, but I still believe I'm not what you are trying to say. And I kept repeating, I'm not saying, I'm only helping you to see what you are.
What you have said already.
So it's an interesting experience sometimes when you see senior most guys. But then I think knowing oneself and if you get to know yourself, which is contrary to your identity, then I think there is an inner battle which goes on, and that's where you'll have to give a space and time to an individual to relax, settle down. Because I have personally gone through this journey about 9 years back, because I had self-impression and perception that I'm the greatest gift of the God to this universe. But then finally, when I got stuck and when I was going through a program with Manvi, then Manvi clarified that it is not that disastrous as I perceived.
Praveen, is your question answered, Praveen?
Yeah, so can I just take 30 seconds, please?
Yes, please.
So so the question was not really about people accepting the reports or not. Of course, in my experience, I know that no one accepts the reports straight away, and that's actually a great challenge that I love, because you know, there's a lot of excitement that happens in the conversation afterwards.
Okay.
The question more was that some assessments nowadays give you some kind of an indication whether the person has been honest enough or not. So on a scale of maybe 1 to 10, if the score is at a particular level or above or below, then it kind of says that you should take this report with some caution. So my question was more from that perspective. It's not about whether people try to game or not, they will. But and again, if they're not successful, it may be a faulty report, it may be a jumbled up report. Sure. But is there anything on a scale that can be told which kind of, you know, says that, okay, this report you need to read with a little bit of caution. And if particularly the score is on that scale is, you know, completely haywire, then you can actually ask him or her to take the test all over again. So that was really the perspective.
Yes, there are indicators, Praveen, but they are not on a scale this way. They are based on what we have in what is called the advanced certification. So when you have certain conditions in profile 2, profile 1, in terms of the size of the profiles, in terms of the shapes of the profiles, there are certain parameters that we do keep in mind. Be careful with results. There are almost invalid results. There are invalid results. Even though the report is generated, we would consider them near invalid. So there are criteria. They wouldn't be based on a scale. They would be based on looking at the profiles, Praveen.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. There is a question from Birgitta Eriksson to everyone. This is based on self-assessment. Is there any good way to detect if a person has a low knowledge of her or himself? That is, the report is not completely with the person's actual behavior. Would anybody like to take the question? Eva?
Yes, the question was about if it's, sorry, about the...
It's based on, the question is, this is based on self-assessment. Is there any good way to detect if a person has a low knowledge of her or himself? That is, the report is not corresponding with the person's actual behavior.
Okay, but there are two things in that one, I believe. The first one is the one you were talking about. How does the profiles look like? How does the result look like? We have to compare the profiles, the size, position, similarity, and all those things. And the other one is when you're going through the report with the person and she or he doesn't recognize herself at all in the situation. So these are the two situations that you can recognize that there's something happening here. I haven't had so many, I've been working with this 11 years and I haven't had so many, I think I've had 1 or 2 of these that the person didn't recognize herself at all in the report. And one of these cases was that the person made it again. She got exactly the same result. And then we started to work and some coaching, and it landed that she could understand the result and why she had made those choices that she had made, so that it created the report like that. The other one is that we were into earlier, that is there's something very big happening, traumatizing happening in life, and that could also affect the result that the person gets. I don't know if this was the answer to your question, Birgitta.
Is your question answered, Birgitta?
Okay.
Okay. Would you like me to add something, or is it okay? Okay. Should I or shouldn't I? Okay. I'll just say this. A couple of years back, when I was doing a training program, a certification program in Delhi, I had this, during the program, I had this person stand up and say, I don't agree with a single thing that is written in this report about me. And he flung the reports on the table and said, I'm going out of the room. And I said, that's perfectly all right. I understood immediately what was happening. And he said, no, but before I leave, I want an answer. So I said, we can take this discussion offline. And he said, no, I want it online and I want it now. And he had sold himself in front of the group. So everybody then kind of ganged up and said, we want an answer. So I requested the person and I said, we can really do this offline. But he said, no, I want an answer. So I said, okay, has anything traumatic happened to you in your life in the last 3 to 6 months? And because my question was very straight, I could see something happening to him. I could see tears opening up in his eyes, welling up in his eyes. And I still told him, I said, we can take this offline. We can take it outside the room right now if you want to. But I think his position was already too compromised. So he said, no, I'll answer. He said, I'm the son of a real estate builder, a person who builds buildings. I'm the son of a builder. I was kidnapped 3 months back. I was shoved into a car. I was shot at point blank range by a country-made revolver. There was one bullet, it misfired, and the bullet whizzed past. And before they could reload, I opened the car door and threw myself out. Now, in such a situation where when one's image of self has been so badly shaken and distorted because of these events, and you take an assessment, the assessment goes through what is called a flip. All right, it goes to the other side and you can't recognize it. You have made correct choices. You have answered in a statistical manner, you have answered the questionnaire correctly, but it is a flip, it is an opposite. So when your report comes, you will not recognize it because you know a little bit about yourself, but you can't recognize the responses because they're coming from a, yes, can a traumatic, Gauri has asked a question, can a traumatic incident also, not all, can a traumatic incident alter the basic personality? Gauri, we don't know how long trauma will persist. We have no idea. Sarabjit has answered yes. We don't know how long the trauma will persist. If the trauma comes back to normal within a reasonable period of time and the person does a reassessment, it's fine. Otherwise, we'll have to go to people like Ishita and just refer the cases to them because they're clinical psychologists. I have a background in economics. I'm not qualified to handle trauma for sure. Can a consultant recognize the flip? The consultant can recognize the flip when one starts talking to the person and the person disagrees. It's a psychometric tool. Remember, there are tests that are used to measure the validity of these parameters D, I, S, and C. So if you agree with 70%, 67%, 70%, 80% of what is written, it's fine. It's considered a valid tool. But if you disagree with everything that is written, then there is something else that is the case. All right, like strong denial, trauma, it could be anything. Is your question answered, Gauri?
Okay, but the report per se may not show a flip to the consultant.
Report will not say,
Okay.
report generates exactly what is said in terms of you are having made accurate choices for most and fairly reasonably or relevant opposite choices in least, and that the report will give you the answer. That's why the first validity check is a mirror image to check that,
Right.
and then after that, when we start seeing size, shape, position, then we know exactly what to talk about.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Are there any other questions? We have 1 minute left for this program. Are there any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Jayant.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of senior people out here, and interestingly, we have a psychologist, right? Now the question is, before COVID, if somebody had taken a profile, the reports were out, and after COVID, let's say once things get normal, and we do another profiling for that person, will it be the same or it'll be a different?
I can answer that question, Jayant. We know that there are two profiles in the extended risk analysis. There's profile 2, there's profile 1, natural behavioral style, and profile 1 is the perceived need to adjust. We also know that the perceived need to adjust doesn't change so fast. It takes about 3 to 6 months of anything persisting in the environment. So if you go to work today and your boss shouts at you and something happens, you have some kind of emotion or feeling towards your boss, and you take the assessment, it won't really show in the report. But if there is something that is persisting in your environment continuously for 3 to 6 months, then that will show up in profile 1 very easily. So if this COVID thing persists for 3 to 6 months, let's say persists, God forbid, till September, October, and then people start taking the assessment, you will notice something in their profile 1 for sure. You might even notice something. We will notice something. We won't say it will change because change is a very strong word. We will say there will be something which will happen to their profile 1. What is that change? What is that shift? What is that adjustment? Perceived? We will see those things. If there is something very strong that happens in this time in terms of loss of job, future insecure, unemployment, serious wage cuts, if those things happen and it affects the person, All right. Or if the person develops some kind of an illness at this point of time, it may not be the COVID illness. It might be some health issue.
Some other
It could be
illness.
something else,
Yeah.
which affects his ability to be employable or anything in the future. Then it might even affect his profile too. Profile
Okay.
1 adjusts within 3 to 6 months. Profile 2 takes much longer to come back or adjust to its normalcy in terms of size, shape, position. Is the question
Okay.
answered?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure having this interaction. We are exactly 60 minutes on the dot. Eva, thank you so much for joining us for a second time. Nina, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate taking your time out from your schedules. Heather, appreciate. I know you're running back-to-back meetings on Zoom and TeamViewer and Microsoft Teams and this. And so thank you so much for being here with us. Anurag, I know you're keeping yourself extremely, extremely busy with a lot of work that you're doing and talking very little about it, but thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we have Ishita. Ishita, being a very, very successful clinical psychologist, having a busy private practice. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, all the participants, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you all. Thanks for your questions and for the interactive session. We will end the meeting here. I will edit this, and sometime you will have the video of this uploaded on YouTube, and I will share the links with everybody. So thank you once again, everybody. Good evening. Stay home and stay safe.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.